Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Next Go Wins podcast, episode 42. Another boring episode in terms of the numbers, not in terms of the conversation that we're going to have. Just kidding. That's probably also going to be a little bit.
Could be pretty boring.
I have my co-host with me, Joe D, Stats Man. How's everything looking, Joe? We still on track?
You know what? I've decided I feel like the stats don't matter anymore. We're just out here. We're having fun.
We stopped
talking
tracking
about
the
something
stats.
we enjoy. And the stats will be what the stats are. So
Stats aren't everything, especially in football. Stats are not everything.
They are not.
That is true.
Except for if you're Georgie and you're trying to make a case for Darwin or Liverpool, and then
No.
then he comes prepared with stats.
I'm
and
not
You
stats.
can make
that guy.
stats up.
I don't need stats to back my boy Darwin.
And we got Georgie.
How are we?
The boys are back here. Another episode. We've actually been cranking out these episodes quite a bit recently. So we got to continue on this trend because we're getting closer and closer to 50.
Ooh.
Once we got to have a theme for the 50th episode. I don't know what that's going to be, but we got to have a theme. We'll see what day it falls on. Because it might be some like
It
an
might be
important
tomorrow at this point. We might
Maybe.
crank out like 8 episodes.
game. Before we get into what we're going to talk about, first of all, today is one of those episodes that happens every once in a while, not all the time. Every once in a while, we just don't write stuff down. No pre-cap, no organization. We just come up here and we just talk. That's one of the episodes today. That's what this is going to be. There are some things that we got in mind. One, Champions League.
Shite.
Yeah, not great.
Not a ton going on there.
Talk about the new format.
Shite.
We'll talk. George is not happy. I kind of like it. I think it's kind of fun. We'll talk about the trip that we have coming soon.
Shite.
To a city near you. To a city near you.
Hopefully to a city near you. But before we get into that stuff, I do think it's important we address our fans, our supporters, the loyal people who are listening to our podcast day in and day out. Well, when I mean by people, I mean person. My boy Eddie watches our podcast, commented 3 times on the last episode. He wasn't happy. Each comment got longer as the podcast went on. So first of all, I wanted to get him on the podcast. It's been
And
we've
then
been
he
trying
got
to figure
scared.
Wasn't he supposed to be here?
He was supposed to come.
Long ago?
He
didn't
bailed.
end up coming.
Uh-huh.
He bailed. Rumor is he was a little bit scared of Georgie because Georgie had a whole thing prepared for.
I was ready.
So,
I was ready to go.
however, we are in grave danger of losing Eddie as our only listener
Do you want to go over the messages?
if you don't sort your stuff out. Well, we don't have to go over the messages because the main points were.
Tell me the main point now.
What's up, puppy? I'll be in a little. Let me just get Georgie to talk. Sorry, my kid's upstairs.
Yeah, I'm sure
here,
he doesn't
so-
understand what you just told him. Yeah, we're just waiting.
we couldn't get the kids to bed today. His main point was
Mhm.
you only talk about Liverpool and you don't spend any time on Chelsea and you just manipulate the facts to talk about Liverpool. So go ahead, defend yourself.
First and that's actually not what he said in the comment. In the comment, he said something completely different. However, I will defend that point. First and foremost, Eddie, I'm a Liverpool fan. So the whole point of that rant on the last video was you made it seem like it was not a big deal in terms of like media-wise, when in reality, even yesterday, BBC posted about it, Sky Sports posted about it, Mark Gorbridge on our podcast talked about it. So the whole entire rant, if we were to cut that video, we would have got thousands of views just because of that rant. Because it was a media, it was the most talked about thing for pretty much the most weekend. Sorry to say, nobody talked about Chelsea and Brentford playing. I don't even remember if that game actually happened, to be honest. So nobody, like media didn't talk about it. So the only reason I had a rant is because it was made a big deal. Why else would I come here defending Liverpool in terms of that if it wasn't a big deal?
Well, I think the problem is also the fact that he says this is an Arsenal and Liverpool podcast, and if it is,
And West Ham.
if it is, well, West Ham very little, but if it is, he says we should just say it. Say it is. In which case he'll stop watching as well.
Well, this is the point. Okay, let's talk about Chelsea. Where do we start on Chelsea? We've talked about Pochettino, that he is nowhere near where he needs to be on the table. We've talked about the players are not performing after spending billions and billions of dollars. And the owner wants to hire Steve Kerr. So and he wants
First of
to,
all, that's not true. That's
I was
not
going to
true.
ask, is that true? Because I did not
That's
see
not
that
actually
anywhere.
true.
But wait, did I send you the thing?
No.
Oh, there's it made it rounds on social media. It was like Todd Bowley, whatever his name is. Is
Yep.
it Ted? Todd? Whatever.
Ted.
I don't know. Ted Lasso. I don't know. He wanted to pretty much copy the Ted Lasso way of hiring a football coach, bringing him to the Premier League. So he was going to hire a champion of Steve Kerr to Chelsea because he's ran out of options. And that tweet made its rounds and made like millions and millions of views.
That is funny. The only thing I saw because Todd Bowley continues to hire people from Brighton. It seems like he hires a bunch of like the scouts and different things.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you wanted to do all of this, why didn't you just buy Brighton?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, but I did not see
Oh yeah, I mean that was
Ted
curious.
Lasso away in this.
I'm curious to see how bad it could be. Actually, if you get somebody who's like I was telling this to Georgie earlier, but how bad can it be if you get somebody who's like an actual man manager? He gets a couple assistants who obviously know what they're doing, like
Ted
coach,
Lasso.
like Ted Lasso.
Well, actually, his assistant coach has no
Could
idea
it be
what
that
he's
bad?
doing.
I mean, the players. It's not like the players are going to be terrible. You still have good players.
But
It's just the tactics.
What? That's what. Okay. Okay. Think about that. You have Pochettino who knows soccer in and out. What do you think is going to happen when somebody that doesn't know just comes in and is like, "All right, guys, just."
Honestly, it might help Chelsea
I mean,
the
it
way
might
they've been
'cause
playing.
it frees up a little bit of the stress and pressure and all that. So more of the story is, Eddie. We talk about Chelsea at times, and we talk about Chelsea, especially in the beginning of the podcast. And they're Man United, and what I mean by that is they put 2-3 games together, and then everybody's like, "Oh my God, they're back. Pochettino's not gonna get sacked. He's not gonna be under pressure," and then something happens, and then it's just a whole rotation, in and out, no matter what. So at this point, Chelsea are a mid-table team that spent billions until proven otherwise. Simple as that.
I think, sadly, I don't know if it's sadly, actually. I think you're right. The Chelsea are just a
not
mid-table
sad.
team, and it's not sad because it actually makes me really happy.
Yeah.
And I feel bad saying that because I do enjoy like good teams, and the more good teams I think is just better for the league in general. But there's something about Chelsea fans.
Something about those Chelsea fans.
It grinds my gears. But
I'll say this, and well, you know what? Let's just keep talking about Chelsea. Chelsea were the first original team that started this whole money buying of billions of dollars spent on players.
right, like they can't be mad at Manchester City because really Roman Abramovich started that
was the first one. Yeah.
that whole era.
Yeah.
It is wild to see. I mean, if you really think about Chelsea, if you remove the Roman Abramovich era, like there hasn't been obviously a ton of success there. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
When he was there,
Amazing.
absolutely
Well,
amazing. 2 Champions Leagues.
Yeah.
They had the whole season with Mourinho where they think they conceded 16 total goals over.
The first few years of Mourinho, they were incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. But again, I say this about every team, and this is like, I'm being serious about this. Every team, whether it's Man United, well, I was going to say Man City, Man United, a Chelsea, an Arsenal, a Liverpool, you're going to go through like 5, 6, 7, 8 years of really dominance, of being one of the best teams in the world, and then you're going to dip back down and kind of rebuild for 5 to 10 years, and then you're going to get back to your feet. For example, Arsenal.
Yep.
Where Arsene Wenger top four, winning, FA Cups, winning League Cups, and then Champions League? No.
No, we lost in the final to
yeah.
Barca. Yeah.
And then you go through a little spell of uncertain times and who's going to come in, Unai Emery, and not so much success and all that. And now you have Arteta, who's bringing you guys back up to one of the better teams in the world. So I think it's a normal thing where Chelsea had their time for like, I can't even say for like 5-year period, because at one point they were really good with Mourinho for like 2-3 years. And then they kept changing managers in and out. So 1 year success, 1 or 2 years off, 1 2 years decent. So it was a weird period for Chelsea, but now it's obviously a struggle.
I'm trying to think of what clubs don't go through that because normally it's obviously like manager leaves because you have an established manager for a while, and you find sustained success. Sir Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, like you mentioned. It's those pockets of time in that transition period. I guess it is kind of Chelsea managed to find sustained success even though they switched their coach often in the Abramovich era. Outside of Real Madrid's the only team that's like jumping out to me in my head that stays consistent really regardless of manager because they've changed managers multiple times, consistently win Champions League, consistently are fighting for the top spot in La Liga. But it's just an interesting dynamic, and I don't know if anyone will ever find that level of sustained, continued success at the top. But it's just so hard.
It's nearly impossible, especially when you change coaches and managers that come in and out. It's just bound to happen at some point.
Agreed.
But I mean,
that's enough on Chelsea.
That's pretty enough.
Should we pivot? We can.
That's too much on Chelsea. That's enough for the next 10 episodes, to be honest.
Well, there you go, Eddie. We have heard from our fans. So if you have feedback for us and you want us to talk about your team more, just do what Eddie did and comment a bunch of times on the video, and we'll do it for you.
And also, if there's a team or something that happens in that game, obviously, that is worthy of mentioning, then we're going to talk about it.
True.
But if nobody else is talking about it, it's not really media worthy for us either. So,
well, Javi's out of the room. You know, we can start a new segment, and that's like the he's back, but we're going to start the segment anyways.
Wait, maybe he has something to say about Chelsea.
You have something to say about Chelsea before we move on?
Yeah, they're absolutely useless.
Perfect.
Everybody
sounds
knows
about right.
Well, okay. Well,
what do you think though about adding on a segment of the show where we throw in you can comment, and then Georgie will sift through the comments. He loves getting into the comments, but George will sift through the comments, pick a few ideas out of there,
George is a moderator.
Talk about things that you want to hear about. Eddie commented he wanted us to talk about Chelsea. We've done that. Hopefully you're happy, Eddie, and it's everything you were hoping for.
Oh, no, he's going to get a comment. You guys only talk shit about Chelsea.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because
you can only talk shit about Chelsea right now.
Yeah,
there's no positives.
Eddie, you know what? I'm going to give you some homework. Name me 3 things you're very happy about this season in terms of Chelsea. 1. Actually, I can't even name 3 things. Is there a positive in Chelsea season at the moment?
They're out of they're not in the relegation zone. Would probably be the.
So we'll let Eddie answer those if
they've kept a manager for a few months in a row.
That's
we're up to 2.
We're up to 2. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Look at that. But let's. I can't talk more about Chelsea because we just got to pivot on. You know what? We'll talk about what we are planning on doing this summer.
Oh yeah, Joe, let us know. You're the planner. You planned this whole trip.
I am the planner, and I will say, trying to plan with these 2 Muppets is like herding cats, blindfolded.
Before we get into that, though, can I just say one more thing about Chelsea?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. This is the same thing I've told Eddie.
It is your podcast, so yes, we will allow you to.
This is the same thing I've told Eddie the entire time this season, is that he has absolutely no valid complaints, no valid defensive arguments whatsoever, because you do not get to spend as much money as you have buying any player that you want for insane amounts of money for no reason, and then say you need a rebuilding period in order to be successful. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Fair.
I mean, it's like...
he's like, oh, well, these are a bunch of players never played together. I'm like, no, Eddie, I don't care. I don't care if they've never played together before. You do not get to spend all this money and then say, well, once we rebuild for a little bit, once we have a little period of them getting to know each other. No.
None of that. No rebuild.
Don't come around here with that shit, Eddie.
I was going to say something, but I'm going to leave Liverpool out of this. So I was going to say our kids. No, it's okay. I won't go there.
To be fair, though, we do have to stop spending 45 minutes on Liverpool at the beginning of the podcast.
100%.
You ask me questions.
We have to stop asking Georgie anything.
You asked me those questions.
We're going down the path again. We've already said Liverpool now 3 times. We got to pivot hard, otherwise we're going to go down the path. Georgie's going to suck us into the black hole.
Listen, Sunday's the day.
See, here we go.
We'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's go back to Joe's
planning.
This summer, obviously we have the Copa America, and I've been begging, I guess, planning, negotiating, whatever term you want to use, but we will be traveling and going to Copa America games The 3 we're planning to go to are, the first one will be the July 1st, I believe is the date. USA versus Uruguay in Kansas City, Missouri. So if you are in the Kansas City, Missouri area, you either want to meet up with us, hop on the podcast, show us around the city, grab food, grab a drink, whatever, please let us know. So we'll be hitting that up first. And then we'll be driving down to Arlington and Houston for the 2 quarterfinal games, which will be the winner of Group A and the runner-up of Group B, and then vice versa, the runner-up of Group A and the winner of Group B. And those 2 games are July 4th and July 5th. So if you're either in the Arlington area or the Houston area, we'll have some downtime. We'll be shooting some content. We're doing a few podcasts for you, just recording content just at the games, things of that nature. So again, if you live in any of those areas, Houston, Arlington, Kansas City, Missouri, please comment. Let us know. We'd love to meet up, see you in real life. You can see how amazing I am in real life, and you can see how average Georgie and Javi are. But yeah, should be a fun time, and we're really, at least I'm really pumped about it. I don't know if you guys are.
Yeah, I am.
Opportunity to see,
and we're going to Europe to watch the Euro Cup, so the European Championship.
So the point of this trip really is for us to get a lot of content that's not just us sitting in this living room in my upstairs here. So we want to kind of expand the scope of the podcast, try some different things, see what works, see what doesn't, but also be able to go to the stadiums, get some match day experience, and do some non-podcast related stuff like interviews and things outside of the stadium. I don't know, some fun stuff. We'll get creative with it. But the benefit of us also being on the road is be able to crank out content left and right because we'll be on the road. So what else are we going to do? So the other benefit of the way we have it set up right now, if this is the final schedule that we're going with, because we've been going back and forth, Joe can't make up his mind on what we're doing.
That's for sure. True. Yep, that's me.
Is we get to see the United States on the way down to Texas. So the United States, make sure we get to watch them. And then if everything goes well, according to our fact checking here, we should be able to see Mexico and Argentina in both of those other games because both of them will finish either first or second in their group. If they don't, then that kind of sucks because then we miss out. But we get to see Uruguay. So Darwin Nunez, Lionel Messi, all of the Mexican national team, all of the United States national team, and then a couple extra players like McAllister.
Oh, the extra players.
Yeah.
You really...
Listen, we're not driving down to Texas just to see McAllister, all right? He is one of the extra players.
That's so disrespectful.
Just an added benefit. World Cup champion.
Uruguay's going to win it, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So we'll see. But the other thing we're trying to do is also just expand for the future. So like ideally we'd like to do, I don't know, maybe some like live podcasts. We need to do some more watch-alongs. We haven't done watch-alongs on TikTok in a while. So we need to do that as well. And then, I don't know, just become famous. From just sitting here and talking, being absolutely useless in our actual footballing knowledge.
Speak for yourself.
Wow.
Did you even come prepared with a rant today?
No, he told me not to do rants.
All right, Champions League. Joe, you want to lead us into the Champions League?
Yeah. So obviously it's a Champions League week. Tonight is, I guess technically, is it still Wednesday or is it Thursday now? Nope, it is still Wednesday. So Champions League week. We had some games yesterday, some games today. Honestly, I don't want to say they were boring because obviously there were some good games, some good goals, but there weren't any of those matches where I was like, I really, really wonder who's going to go through. I was really, really cheering for
Leipzig?
No, Lazio.
Oh, Lazio
against Bayern because I don't know why I had a feeling that they could somehow just knock Bayern out.
Yeah.
Bayern made it seem pretty easy at the end of the day with the final scoreline. But what were your thoughts on the games over the last 2 days, Georgie?
Honestly, like you said, it's something is just missing. Like from like yesterday, today. I don't know. Like the hype isn't, or it hasn't been there in this like round of the Champions League at all, to be honest. But obviously, if you're a fan of any of those teams, you're gonna watch the games. But the game that stood out to me the most out of the four is the Real Madrid Leipzig game.
Yep.
Today.
Closest
And
out of all of them in terms of
it was
aggregate
insane.
scoreline.
It was insane because Leipzig should have won that game by 3 or 4 goals. Real Madrid plays so poor at home, and they tried to play with Jude as a striker, and every time the ball would get out wide to Vinny or to Valverde out wide or Carvajal, there was absolutely nobody but Jude inside the box. And in the first half was absolutely terrible. Obviously, the second half was a little bit better, but just overall, that's not the Real Madrid, especially not the Real Madrid in the Champions League that we're used to. It's just not how they play.
Yeah, but does it matter though?
It doesn't matter because in the end they got the job done, and that's what Real Madrid does in the Champions League. But Leipzig had amazing, like, not just chances. They had
Some clear-cut chances.
Clear cut, especially in the first half. They had 3 1-on-1s pretty much with the goalkeeper. That where you're like at least one of the if Leipzig scores first in that game, it's a totally different outcome.
Totally different game. Do you think that this kind of shows other teams? Like, I think a lot of teams were nervous of, like, Real Madrid, I don't know if I want that draw. Or do you think people see that game now and say, I'd rather play Real Madrid earlier than later if this is the type of form that they're in? Because, I mean, obviously they had the draw over the weekend. I know, controversial. Technically they drew today.
Yeah. They've been dropping a lot more points than usual.
Yeah.
But it's Real Madrid. Like, I don't think if you're any team in the Champions League, you're like, oh, well, I'd rather play Real Madrid now than later. But
I don't care what form they're in.
It's Real Madrid.
That's the last team you want to take in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Even over City right now?
I actually, I don't know. That's a tough one.
It's the same thing.
Because form you think leans towards City. Historically speaking,
Yeah, Real Madrid.
you'd say Real Madrid. However, I mean, City's coming off of, they just kind of got that monkey off their back in terms of getting their Champions League title.
Frauds. I actually think City would smack Real Madrid right now. Like we're talking about form in terms of like right this moment, I think City would absolutely destroy Real
them.
Madrid.
Yeah. I also thought it was odd to see. I had to double check to make sure Rodrigo wasn't injured when I saw the lineup today, because it seemed like a pretty defensive lineup with, to your point, they had Bellingham up top, Valverde out wide with Vinny. So in terms of like actual defined wingers and strikers, they really only played with one, which would be Vinny. Yeah. Obviously, Jude can play up there, and he does fine really wherever you put him, but it's not the way they normally line up.
No. And Vinny should have had a red card, if I'm being honest.
When he smacked the guy in the face with it?
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't know if it was exactly in the face, but it was like in the throat area. You don't put your hands in somebody else like that and just get a yellow card.
Yeah, but if this was Liverpool, that wouldn't even be a card.
You're right.
Maybe
a blue card.
You're so fake, Georgie. You're so
How
fake.
would that not even be a card?
You're so fake.
Frauds.
I'm saying if this was if that would have been Darwin Nunez putting their hand on somebody's
down
throat.
here.
See?
This is why we go down the path, Javi. This is why we do the Liverpool thing, because you bring it up, you poke the bear, next thing you know,
The bear eats you alive. Let me just tell
the
you
bear
one
just
thing.
talks for 45 minutes before he falls
Darwin
asleep.
headbutted a Fulham player. And
Yeah, wasn't that like his first match?
his second game last year.
I'll tell you what, though, Real
do you think, Eva?
Madrid is crazy because they could look so bad for so long, and you know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to get one counterattack, and they're going to make it look so easy. Literally, they pass it. I forget who wins the ball and passes it to
Jude.
To Jude, and he just takes it 70 yards.
And he just dribbles like he's not under. I mean, I'm sure he's dribbling extremely fast, but he doesn't look like it. And then he just waits. Vinicius makes the run, plays it to him, and then a simple finish. Boom. And all of a sudden, the game's almost out of reach. And then obviously they scored right after, which keeps them in the game. I'm surprised that they didn't, at the end of the game, there was a corner kick. And it was about a minute and a half before the game was over. But they didn't send the goalkeeper. Why not? Send everything. Like, at that point, you're not going to get too many more opportunities. That probably was the last one that they had. So, like, you go with everything. Anyway.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think if you had to choose, you probably don't want to play Manchester City. You didn't never want to play Real Madrid. But if it was between them two right now, I would rather play Real Madrid than I would play against Manchester City.
Alrighty. I think we touched on all of them then. I guess the one game we didn't touch on was PSG. They did what they needed to pretty easily against Real Sociedad. Oddly enough, is this the year that PSG does something?
No chance.
Or do they surprise everybody and Mbappe takes PSG to the final, wins it all, mic drops, pulls a Declan Rice like he did with West Ham, and then walks away and goes to Real Madrid?
Liquid football has a better chance of winning the Champions League. Let me tell you this, though. That whole situation is very weird because in the league, Mbappe gets subbed out.
Mhm.
Now, at halftime, it's like, oh, the manager says, oh, well, we got to get used to life without him. When it comes to the Champions League, the big night, when you need somebody to make a difference, he plays.
He played out of his mind.
And he's the one that delivers.
Yep.
This looks better on him now because he's leaving. Like, it doesn't really matter what happens. He doesn't really care. But it's very funny, not just in life in general, how when somebody's like, oh, in the league, we don't really need you. Like, even though he's the best player, obviously, and they want to keep him, but he's not staying. They're like, we got to get, used to life without you. But when it comes to the Champions League, we can't be without you. We need you. We need you to be the best player on the field.
I think that's different, though, just because, it is the Ligue 1, and they're going to win the league, and they don't need him to play all the time.
Are they going to win the league, though? Yeah. I don't know how close it is.
They're going to win the league.
They're going to win.
They don't need Mbappe. They could sub him out of half. He didn't even stick around. Oh, he did stick around. He went to the stands.
Yeah, he did go to the stands.
He was on the phone. He was on the phone.
But the whole situation is weird. You're not going to get any...
But it doesn't matter if he's not in your projects for next year because the Champions League is an every year thing. So it's like...
Yeah.
And also, you want to win the Champions League. If you're Luis Enrique, if you're the owners of PSG, you want to win the Champions League.
Yeah,
and if you're Mbappe, you want to win the Champions League, regardless of if you're leaving or not.
But it's like, you can't say, oh, we got to get used to life without him. And then next 2 days later, well, he has to start. He's our best player. It's like...
I disagree with you on that just because there's... the caliber of the competition is drastically different.
It is, but it's like
I was
the
surprised
mindset. I don't like that mindset. Like, if you're a manager, just keep your mouth shut and let the guy play. Or bench him. Pick your mind. You can't... It's like a weird...
No, because I think it's very similar to teams in like the Premier League playing a certain roster for the league matches and then playing a different roster in the FA Cup, where you give a little bit more, like the backup keeper always gets the FA Cup, typically. A couple of the young guys get the FA Cup.
Yeah, FA Cup.
Because you're trying to give them a little bit more experience and a little bit more, and you're trying to keep them happy and give them repetitions. So like, it's the same thing with the Champions League with Mbappe. Is if I was a manager, it's like, I don't need you for the league because we know we're going to win the league. So maybe that's an opportunity to keep some of those other guys happy in the league. But in the Champions League, we haven't won it. We would really like to win it. And when you leave, our chances of winning the Champions League drastically go down. Mm-hmm. So why not say, okay, it's the last year with you. We're going to keep you on as long as we can in the Champions League and go for it. And then next year, chances are we're not even going to get close.
They're not going to get anywhere close this year. With Mbappe.
The only risk that you're taking is putting a guy on whose mentality might be already in Madrid.
Well, it is already. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't. That's why. Like, if your manager says to you, as a player, like benches you have the time at halftime, takes you off in games, you can't. Your rhythm is going to get thrown off. So obviously, you balled out last game against Sociedad, but that's like, it's not. You can't sustain that if you're going to keep benching him halfway and the whole. If anything, just don't say anything to the press. Don't make it a bigger deal than it is, and that's it. Just
I don't know. I get you, but they're still going to ask the questions. Why'd you take him off?
Yeah, I don't.
What's he going to say?
I don't see any problem with it. It'll be different, I think, if they're in a different league and it was a little bit more competitive.
But I think we can agree.
They're 9 points clear. So, but all right. Well,
you can agree on what?
We can agree that they're not going to win the Champions League.
No chance.
Yeah, probably not.
Speaking
next
of
week, I think are the like more. I don't want to say more exciting games, but
But Arsenal plays?
No, the ones that are more up in the air with Atletico Inter.
That's a good game.
Dortmund PSV. Obviously Arsenal. Porto, and then what is the last
Porto
one?
The upset.
What is the last one? I can't find it.
We're flying. There's no chance.
Arsenal
are going to smash Porto. Plus, we're playing at home.
Mm-hmm. Damn, that confidence.
Arsenal.
I don't know.
Nobody
he's
wants to
he's more confident than I am. I am somewhat nervous about it, but
the only way I would be nervous is if Mourinho was with Porto. Only way. If they somehow fly Mourinho in as an assistant or something and just tell him like, hey, just sort out the tactics for this one game, I'd be scared. But Arsenal are flying. There's no way you're going to stop them.
Yeah, all the games next week are either tied or within one goal. The one I was missing was Napoli-Barca. So I think next week we're going to get more of that Champions League excitement. But it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. Before we started, is part of the reason why we don't have that level of excitement because the away goal rule is no longer there. Because you can go from losing to advancing with one goal when you have the away goal rule. Now, that can't happen.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in between. At first I thought though I used to always think the away goal rule was stupid because I was like it cancels out. You play at home, you play in away. Like it would make more sense if you played a one-off game. If you played a one-off game and it was like 50-50 where it ends up. So like if Liverpool are playing Arsenal, let's say, and the game ends up being at Liverpool, we should get the benefit of the away goal rule. Like that would make a little bit more sense.
That would be an advantage almost.
Yeah, I guess
to play
you're right.
away.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
Your version would have the version
you're
how
right.
it was makes more sense compared to.
I'm just saying, like, so that's completely wrong. But what I'm trying to say is this, because I didn't think about that at times I said it. What I'm trying to say is this: is that if you're going to give an advantage for an away goal, there has to be some sort of disadvantage somewhere else for that to make sense. Because if both teams are playing home and away, it's like
it's the advantage is that like when you are playing away, if you can get a goal,
both teams get a chance.
Both teams have a chance to score away. So like Arsenal, for example, would be in a tough spot because we didn't score away to Porto. They're up 1. That if they come and score, technically they're up 2, but really they're up 3.
Yep.
Because we would then need to score 3 goals to overcome it. And that was the thing because it makes that second leg just a little bit sketchy where I think more teams, like in that scenario, Porto I think would be more early on in the game they would be trying to get a goal. Opposed to right now, it's pretty much just like, hey, let's just not give up a goal. If we give up a goal, then it's game on and let's play. But with the away goal rule, I think they go into the game with a different mentality of if we can nick a goal on a counter or a set piece or whatever, now they have to score 3, and it's a much taller task. I also think back to like one of my favorite Champions League memories, which was the PSG Barca game. Do you guys remember that one?
The comeback?
The comeback?
5-1 comeback?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was I think it was like 6. I thought it was 6 or something.
Was it 6?
It may have been aggregate score 6. But, I mean, Barcelona went from losing to winning. I think it was Jordi Alba that scored the final one right on that cross that like went all the way across the box and he like slid and tapped it in. Like those are the moments that are gone now, because you can go from out of the Champions League to one touch of the ball and next thing you're through. That's the sad part, I think, of the away rule.
Yeah, but the reason why I also didn't like it was because deep down I kind of always wanted to see overtime and penalties.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, crap. Like once the scores are now completely different, no matter what happens, you're not getting penalties. So one team's going to pass through. So that's the part that for me I was always like, that kind of sucks because now somebody's going to win.
Some games there was no chance they went to extra time or penalties. That's
fair.
Fair.
Whereas like now, as long as it's tied, they're going to penalties or they're going to overtime and then penalties.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic of new Champions League rules, should we talk about and explain next year's Champions League?
Oh, that's how you explain.
Joe's the stats guy. I'll let him work us through the.
All right.
That alone is a task on its own.
Dun, 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 dun. All right. So, starting next season for the first time, the Champions League group stage will be no more. The way it will be set up will be a total table. Was it 36 teams?
Yeah.
Right? 36.
So four more teams than this year.
So it's going from 32 to 36. 36 teams, and they'll be broken up into 4 different quadrants. So the top quadrant, the second quadrant, the third, and the fourth. And the way that it will work is each team will play 2 games, one home, one away, against teams from each quadrant. So you would play 2 games against the top quadrant teams, drawn at random, 1 game home, 1 game away. Same thing with the second group, third group, fourth group. So in essence, you go from playing 6 group stage games to now playing 8 group stage games. Then once all those games are done, there will be one big league table. The top 8 teams from that automatically advance into the knockout stage, the round of 16. Numbers 8 or 9 through 25, right? 9 through 25. It's either 9 through 25 or 9 through 26, however the numbers work out, will then go into a 2-leg knockout stage with the advancers going into the round of 16, playing against the top 8, and then it carries on as normal. So you're looking at a potential, depending on where you finish, 4 additional games over the course of that for the individual teams. But I'm pretty excited about it. I think it changes it up. I think we're going to see a lot of big teams play each other more consistently and playing different teams. So instead of, for example, in this Champions League, Bayern playing Manchester United home and away, they could play Manchester United at home, and then they could play Real Madrid away. And that, to me, is, I think, the exciting part, is we're going to see just a lot more what's the right word? Interleague or interleague games, where you're going to see more teams from La Liga playing more top teams from the Premier League, etc. What do you guys think about the new setup? And anything you would add to my explanation?
Well, it's also one single table, and the weird part about that is that you could play 8 different teams than somebody else in the table, but the points still accumulate based on where you end up in the table. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit weird, because like I might end up getting screwed having to play Manchester City, whereas another team might not play Manchester City, but we are still
in the same table.
Same table. So that's going to be the difficult part. We also don't really know exactly. I don't know if we just didn't do enough research, or they haven't really discussed what is going to qualify you in each of those brackets, right? In bracket 1, 2, 3, or 4. We know it's going to be the best teams in bracket 1, and then a little bit less in 2, and then all the way down. But we're not sure exactly what qualifies you to get into those brackets. But the part the players are going to hate is that you could be playing 3 extra games.
More.
4.
Well, because you're already playing 2 extra games in the group stages.
Stage. And then
another one in the
playoff?
in the possible playoff. So that's
I thought
3
the possible
possibles.
playoff was a 2-legger.
Oh, so that whether it's 1 or 2, so 3 or 4 extra games that you could be playing on top of your current league schedule, plus all your domestic cups. Mm-hmm. So the players aren't happy with it, because obviously for them it's like, we're already playing way too many games. For the clubs and the executives and the owners and TV rights deals and all this stuff, obviously they want this to happen. I think it makes things more interesting, because we were talking about this before. Nobody really cares too much about what happens in the group stage of the Champions League right now, because you typically have one team who's at the bottom who loses almost every single one of their matches, and one team at the top who wins almost every single one of their matches. So really the only 2 that you care about are the second and third place, to see which one's going to go through. This one makes it interesting, because I might have to play Manchester City, and those points are going to be crucial to whether I make it into that top 8 or not. So I think the matchups in the group stages are actually going to be a lot more interesting, but it is kind of crappy for the players that they're going to have to play potentially 3 or 4 extra games.
It's too many games.
It's a lot of games.
These guys are not robots.
Churchy doesn't like change.
I don't like change.
He doesn't like change. But you're right, though. It is a lot of games, man. It's
for the sake of it, let's say Arsenal has to play 4 more games. Where are you going to fit those 4 games? You're going to play 4 games a week.
Yeah.
Like we already have enough injuries, and enough managers complain about the amount of games being played. So instead of the football world trying to make it easier for the teams and players, they're like, you know what? Let's make more money. Let's add more games and make it more interesting.
Yeah, but does that surprise you?
No,
it doesn't surprise me, because all people care about is the money. But the problem becomes when all your favorite players from Man City get hurt and go play an away game at, I don't know, in Czech Republic, and all the fans are like, oh, none of the players are here. Or when Pep is like, oh, we're going to rest players, or Klopp rest players. Well, Klopp is gone, or Arteta rest players. People are going to be like, oh, why are you resting players? We don't, like, it's money, blah, blah, blah. So people are always going to complain.
Well, the other thing as well is, like, once you have the top 8, right? I'm not talking about the knockout people, but the top 8, do they get randomly sorted for the next round?
No, isn't it 1, 8, 7. I don't. I have no idea.
I'm not sure.
Well, no, because those guys get a bye.
You're talking about once those 8 get a bye, then how does it go? I would assume that they're in their own pot. So because then you have the round of 16. The top 8 are probably in pot 1. And then 9 through 16 are in pot 2. And you'll be a pot 1 team will be matched up with a pot 2 team.
Okay,
Would be my
so
guess.
so that's my question then. Let's say you're like third or fourth or fifth in the table, with 1 or 2 games to go, and you know you're not going to be knocked into the ninth. That's when you can rest players.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it
1
matters.
through 4 or 5.
I don't know if you
Would be
can though,
like-
because you would assume that 1 through if you're one of those teams, you're
It's going to be a 3 to 5.
point difference.
Point difference. It's not
It
gonna
could
be-
be.
I guess you're right. It's not that many
So,
games.
The thing that I find I don't want to say hypocritical. I don't think that's the right word, but contradictory, I guess might be a better word with all of this is obviously you're adding in all these additional games. Yes, there's more games than that, and they just continue to be added, it seems like, every single year. But then you also are putting these restraints on every club with financial fair play.
Yep.
That at least 5 years ago or prior to financial fair play, at least some of these clubs could go out and buy more players when there's competitions and not have to worry about the P&L and the profit and loss of it all. Now you're putting these teams in these situations where, hey, we're expecting you to compete in the Champions League, which is now bigger than it's ever been. We're expecting you to compete in everything else. Pretty soon the World Cup's gonna be bigger and longer than it's ever been with additional games when we're adding more teams to that. And on top of all of that, these clubs, it's not like they can even go sign reinforcements. So is that intentional, or is that just kind of an unnecessary, an unthought of negative impact, right? Or is it intentional of trying to say, you know what, we want to try and incentivize these clubs to have great academies to pull your players through? Because it's the way it's all really lining up is to win multiple trophies, you're going to have academy players that can step up and do it. I mean, and look at Liverpool is proving that this year. You pretty much won the Carabao Cup with academy players. You're using a lot of academy players, obviously, in the FA Cup. Some of it's forced because of injuries. But even in the game that you guys beat Arsenal, you had a decent amount of academy players then, and that was even before the injury bug really started. So I'm just thinking, is it an intentional thing? Like we're purposely trying to make these clubs use their youth? Or is it that's just kind of the unintended consequence and byproduct of all these decisions, because play all these more games and we're going to kind of handcuff you and give you these constraints to make it happen. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really think about it in the academy side. For some reason, I find FIFA, UEFA, the governing body, whoever, I don't think they really care that much about the academy.
that's the thing. I don't think they thought of it. To them, it's just more money, more games.
Yeah.
But that, to me, is the
forces,
byproduct of what's going to be happening over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And the part that people are really upset about is the fact that the cities, the Chelsea's, Chelsea's kind of in the now, but the teams that spend so much money, like for example, Man United, they spent $1 billion in the past, whatever.
Yeah, it's more than Manchester City has spent.
If they were spent to right, they would be obviously one of the better teams now in the world. But it gives an advantage to somebody like, for example, Aston Villa, who now they have to sell players this year because of the whole P&L and all that stuff, like you said. So now they got to sell players, where teams like City, Man United, everybody that's spent in the past 5 to 10 years, they're okay because they spent $1 billion already. They have enough players in the bag where if 2-3 players get hurt, you have reinforcements to come that are still worth $50 million. So now players like teams like Aston Villa, or I don't know, all the teams that are up and coming that are trying to get through the next level don't have the luxury of being able to spend.
Yeah.
So it's a weird. It was already weird enough, and now you're adding more games to where you got to be at your very, very best. It's not like you're playing in the FA Cup or League Cup where you can play those kids or whatever. Imagine Arsenal bringing 3 young players against Real Madrid. It's like you're putting them in a very tough spot. So it's like I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna work. I mean, hopefully the academy side of things improves in terms of getting more players through that way, getting them more experience, and then every team kind of concentrates more on that rather than scouting and buying for 50, 100 million, whatever it is. But I don't know. It's going to be very tough. I just don't like the fact that again, we have so many injuries. Players get hurt. Like Barcelona last week, over the weekend, Frankie and who is it? Pedri? Somebody got hurt. Both got hurt.
Pedri, yeah.
So, and that kid has been burned out in the past 2-3 years just because of trying to play nonstop.
Yep.
Barcelona in financial troubles. They spent terrible, and now they're trying to use the young guys nonstop, overworking them. Similar thing happened with Jack Wilshere. Amazing, overplayed by 23, 24,
Can't play.
injuries.
Yep.
Can't play anymore. So many, like we've seen this every few years, you see a talent that's absolutely amazing and then overplayed, overworked. Their body can't take it. They start to break down in the next 2-3 years, and then we never see them again. So, I don't know.
It is unfortunate. It's interesting to see how it will all play out. It's the thing, I guess, too, is kind of sad is if you really think about it, because so this is the last year of the current setup for the Champions League, which is always the Champions League and the World Cup have the same format, which is always pretty cool. That's going away too.
Yeah.
Like the old World Cup format is gone, I think, starting in the next World Cup.
Yep.
Because that's now when they have the groups of 3. So all of a sudden, like if you really think about it, this is the last year that we have the old school group stage, round of 16, tournament style. Obviously, the World Cup and Champions League are different because there's 2 legs in the Champions League and only one knockout game in the World Cup. But both of those formats are now gone and different. So we're transitioning. We've got a pitch invader. We are transitioning to a new era.
Yeah.
And I would assume it's going to go well, but in the back of my mind, I'm somewhat nervous. There might be some issues. What do you think about the new
Which one?
Champions League structure? Were you here to talk about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, we have a pitch invader. Roman, did you poop? This kid definitely pooped. We got a pitch invader over here. No, I think it makes it more entertaining from a group stage perspective. More people will watch in the group stages. I think it makes it worse for the players overall because nobody, as a player, wants to play as many games as they're already playing. I think that's why they made the Conference League, though, for the teams that don't get as many games in Europe to be able to play against other teams in Europe. That's why they did the Conference League.
Mm-hmm.
But for the teams who are in the Champions League, it's like they want less games.
Yeah.
They don't want to play as many.
Yeah.
But for the viewers, I mean, it's more money. Nobody's ever going to turn down more money. Or the people making the decisions are never going to turn down more money.
You are correct on that.
And I wonder what's going to happen with the World Cup. Because the World Cup only happens every 4 years. So I think most people are excited about having more teams in because you get more games.
Yep.
You're trying to cram 4 years of waiting into 1 month. So you might as well give people the most possible games that they're going to be able to get for that 1 month. So that makes sense. But when it's a yearly thing and you're doing this without a break, yeah.
It's a lot.
Especially these players that are good enough to play in things like the World Cup. You go from you make the Champions League final, that ends in June. Then the World Cup starts in June.
Well, think about it this year. You make the Champions League final, then in 2 weeks you have Copa America and Euros.
Yeah.
And then after that you have 2-week break and you're back into your season.
Yep. It is a full-time job. Kind of like podcasting or parenting.
Clearly. All right, we got anything else?
I think.
Stop changing the damn rules. Bring back
George is
the
not
away
happy.
goal.
And Eddie,
And the blue card.
get on the podcast.
The only other thing I think we were going to talk about was this weekend. Huge game. Potential title decider in the EPL. Anfield will probably be rocking. In
Final score,
Manchester
Georgie.
City.
Final score.
No, I don't do it.
George doesn't do predictions.
I'm already too nervous. I'm
going to go with 3-3 thriller.
Wow.
Yes.
Hold on. Who do you get back for that game, though? That's what I want to know. Who do you get back? Who should be healthy enough to play? Salah?
Salah's back, yeah, but he's back in training today, So like, is he actually like? Is that really back? He's technically back. He can feature in that, but like Sobosai, he was training one day, came back against who did we play last game? Who did we play last game? We played
Bournemouth? No, Forest.
Forest. When he came on, he looked sluggish, like slow. So is that really back? No. So it's
I think it's either going to be
so yeah. So Trent is out, Allison's still out, Ryan Graberg's still out. I don't know. Hopefully Kelleher's in. I don't know.
I'm gonna say either a 1-1 draw or City beats you 2-1. I don't see Liverpool winning the game. And it's at Anfield, right?
Yep.
I don't see Liverpool winning the game. I see them doing well enough to get a draw, but I also see Manchester City 2-1.
It's gonna be a tough one.
What about you, Joe?
We have a game tomorrow, so it's
Yeah, that's the thing that does suck too. Game on Thursday, right before the biggest game of the season.
away in the Czech Republic.
You guys can win that with the Klops kids. Send the kids.
I hope.
And win. I'm going
Send the
3-3.
kids.
I'm going 3-3 draw.
Ooh,
I think
6-goal thriller, huh?
just watching City recently, they give up a ton of chances, and one of the many things Liverpool I think is good at is when you get chances in big games, you finish them. You're going to need Darwin to do something great. It does suck. Like a player to me that I feel like would be great in this game for you guys would be Jota.
Yeah.
Just because of how well he holds the ball up, and I think he could cause problems. Because I think too, to some of the teams that have City struggled with, is it Leipzig with Openda?
Yep.
I'm thinking of the game when Openda scored those 2 goals at the Etihad.
Ran through the defense.
Yep, and like he's similar to me the way Jota plays in terms of short in stature, strong, great on the ball, pace, but it does suck that you guys have so many injuries. However, I mean, with Trent being out, you have a decent replacement in Connor Bradley, right?
Yeah.
That really the only one that really hurts to me that you don't have a replacement for is Salah if he can't fully go.
Yeah. And then Jota.
Jota, but even then he doesn't always start for you guys anyways. So
yeah, so it just depends.
Yeah, it depends. I think Klopp will set up more defensive, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It's a good time for Nunez to find his form, though. He's been finding his form lately. He's in good form. Nunez is in really good form right now.
I will be a Darwin Nunez fan this weekend because I don't know. We shall see.
Listen, ever since last night, I haven't been able to sleep normal. I wake up every 2 hours and I think about Liverpool, so I'm already stressed.
Man's lost it.
I have lost the plot.
All right. I think that's it for this one. We'll
Wait. Who did Chelsea play this weekend?
They play Newcastle on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That'll be a good game.
That's actually a good mid-table game.
It's embarrassing.
The battle of
This
the
is embarrassing?
billions.
The battle of the billionaires.
What did
Winner goes 11th.
Wait. Gary Neville called Gary Neville Chelsea nickname. That went viral too. I probably should have talked about it.
There's a few. We got that game this weekend.
£1 billion bottle jobs. Oh man, Gary Neville. What a guy. It's okay.
All right.
Guy.
You guys got anything else?
No.
Let
us know. Leave some comments on what you want us to talk about. If there's anything you want us to talk about on the next podcast, as well as if you live in the Arlington, Houston, or just really greater Arlington, greater Houston, or anywhere in Texas, really, and are willing to travel to see
Kansas
us.
City.
And Kansas City. We'd love to meet you guys and gals. But yeah.
All right. Peace out.
Messi to the near